Once upon a time, in the heart of Owerri, lived a young woman whose name was Ndidi. She was the kind of woman who made suffering look like grace, the kind of woman who, even in pain, still served with a smile, beautiful, respectful, and quiet. A woman with eyes that held ocean of sorrow and yet carried herself like royalty. She was married to Elochukwu, a man whose silence was louder than thunder. A man who loved his mother more than anything in the world. Ndidi had endured 7 years of marriage in a house where love was rationed, a marriage where peace was seen as a privilege. Her husband's mother, known as Mama Elu, was a thorn in her flesh. She called her useless so frequently that the word followed her like a smoke. And what hurt the most wasn't just the insult, but the fact that it came from someone who claimed to be family. Mama Elo made it her life's mission to remind Ndidi of what she had lost. 5 babies, 5 pregnancies, 5 full-term labors that ended with stillbirths. No complications, no warnings, just silence. The kind of silence that could break a woman's soul. Ndidi remembered every one of their names. Children that she never got to cradle, whose names only lived in her heart, and on candlelit anniversaries, which she celebrated alone. Mama Elo never considered that grief was enough punishment. She told anyone who cared to listen that Ndidi had eaten her own children, that she was a trash bin, where babies entered and never came out. It didn't matter how much Ndidi cooked, cleaned or served Madam Elo, she was seen as a curse, and what made it worse was that her husband Elochukwu never defended her, not even once. Elochukwu was a mistake of a man. He was the kind of husband who spoke only when necessary and disappeared when his wife needed him the most. When Mama Elo mocked Ndidi in front of guests, he would simply chuckle and make excuses, saying that his mother was only joking. When Ndidi cried through the night, he would roll over and sleep as though her pain was too loud for his dreams. Every time a baby died, Elochukwu sank deeper into silence, and his wicked mother filled the silence with her venom. She blamed Ndidi for every child that she lost. To her, Ndidi was the reason why her name had not yet echoed through the land as a grandmother. She would scream it during family prayers, saying that God should give her son a fruitful wife, or better still, fill him with the boldness to marry another woman. Ndidi would bow her head and swallow tears, whilst everyone shouted a big amen. Every single baby that she lost. Ndidi saw a white cat in her dream the night before. The first time it happened, she thought it was a coincidence, but the more it happened, she knew that this was more than a coincidence. Ndidi narrated everything to her pastor, who informed her that the cat was no ordinary cat. It's a familiar spirit, he said as he held her hands and began to pray with her. A few minutes passed, and her pastor opened his eyes and revealed that the cat was on a mission. What was even more chilling was the fact that he said that the person behind it all was much closer than she thought. Ndidi left her pastor's office, wondering who this person could be. She arrived home and met her mother-in-law, who ordered her to wash her underwears. Ndidi did not revolt. She picked the dirty garments up and headed straight to wash them. She did everything to be loved. She fasted until her lips cracked, served Mama Elo like a queen, and did everything within her power to please her. But Mama never softened. In fact, the more Ndidi served, the more Mama spat and called her names. One day, after another miscarriage, Ndidi sat on the cold floor with blood trickling down her legs. She pleaded with her mother-in-law to call for help, but Mama looked at her coldly and said, "If your womb cannot hold a child, at least save us the misery by closing your barren legs." That day marked the beginning of her transformation. Ndidi sat in the pool of her own blood, her lips trembling as her spirit cracked. Mama Elo's words hung in the air like poison, but it wasn't just the pain in her body that broke her. It was the realization that if she fails to stand up for herself, she might end up broken or worse still dead. So Ndidi made up her mind to change. She stopped begging for love and decided to take her own life into her hands. For years, Ndidi had been nothing but obedient to her husband and his mother. She did whatever they wanted, even when it wasn't pleasant. She had no voice in her home, as her mother-in-law took charge of everything, including the food that she ate. Ndidi dare not eat anything without permission. Her mother-in-law locked the kitchen, stating that she had no right to waltz into the kitchen like she owned the place. After all, it was her son who brought in all the money in the home. She called Ndidi a leech, whose only role in life was to suck her son dry of his wealth. What she did not know was that Ndidi was an extremely wealthy woman, a woman with vast wealth that even a minute of her time was worth more than her son's yearly income. Ndidi was extremely rich. However, none of them knew of this. Her father died a few years before she met Elo. Ndidi took over her father's companies as his only child. She attended the best schools, home and abroad, and was well vested in her father's business. However, she had no family of her own, as her both parents were dead and all her extended family were abroad. Ndidi decided to find love. She went on several dates, but all of them ended before it started, as all the men were interested in what they could benefit from her. One of her dates even arrived with a CV to plead for a job in one of her companies. Ndidi could not believe how hard it was to find love as a successful woman. So one day, she decided to take a break from her life of luxury. Ndidi appointed a temporary board of directors to oversee her father's companies, while she decided to live a simple life. She wanted to see who would love her for who she is and not for her money. So, she moved out of her luxury mansion into a small rented house at the outskirts of town. Ndidi disguised herself in simple clothes. She tucked her wealth away and applied for jobs she was clearly overqualified for. That was when she got accepted as a cleaner in a small company, the same company where she met her husband Elo, who was a senior staff of the company at the time. Ndidi swept offices and emptied bins without complaint. One morning, while she was cleaning out his office, she stumbled upon some documents that he was about to submit to his boss that morning. Ndidi went through the documents and realized a mistake that could have instantly cost him his job. When Elo arrived at the office that morning, she drew his attention to it, and Elo could not understand how a cleaner could spot such a technical error. He piqued an interest in her and decided to know more about her. Ndidi informed him that she was a graduate. She told him a few things about her, carefully excluding the fact that she was extremely wealthy. In Elo's eyes, Ndidi was a poor cleaner who, despite her struggles, carried herself with so much dignity. He began to talk to her more often, asking for her advice on documents and even job proposals. With her help, Elo excelled at his job. He got several promotions and rose in the company quickly. Elo exploited her intelligence as he got so close to her. One thing led to another, and Ndidi became pregnant months later. It was a hard pill for Elo to swallow, knowing that Ndidi was only a cleaner. Elo, being a senior staff, could not imagine himself marrying a mere cleaner, a woman who took out the trash and swept the offices. He thought about firing her and warning her to get rid of the pregnancy, but Elo knew the dangers of doing so. He needed her more than she needed him, seeing how far he had gone in the 1 year that he had known her. So Elo decided to marry her. Shortly after their wedding, he got a better job in a company which he never knew belonged to his wife. Ndidi made things easy for him because of how much she loved him. Little did she know that Elo only married her because of what he could take from her. He wasn't blinded in love. He was blinded by greed. He saw in Ndidi not just a woman, but an opportunity, even though he thought she was only a cleaner. To him, her brilliance and quiet strength were tools he could use to climb ladders he could never ascend on his own. With Ndidi's unseen hand guiding him, he rose quickly. Every mistake she corrected, every idea she whispered, every prayer she said in silence pushed him forward. He thought he was outsmarting her, but in truth, he was building his life on her shoulders. After marriage, Mama Elo revealed her true face. She treated Ndidi like filth, like a maid her son had mistakenly brought home. You mean to tell me that my son, my handsome son, chose a cleaner for a wife? Useless girl, you should be thanking your stars that you even entered this house. Her insults became daily bread. She locked the kitchen, rationed Ndidi's food, and filled every silence with venom, and Elochukwu, as always, said nothing. Then the stillbirths began. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and with each loss, the white cat returned to Ndidi's window in her dream, its eyes gleaming in the night like burning coal. Each time it appeared, a child never survived. Ndidi wept, prayed, fasted, yet Mama Elo sharpened her tongue and spat venom, accusing her of eating her own children. Trash bin! Every child that enters you dies there. You are cursed, she said to Ndidi over and over again. Not caring the trauma that Ndidi was suffering, Mama Elo's wickedness grew bolder as each day passed. When Ndidi lost her third baby, Mama Elo began to invite other women into their home, young pretty girls, who she paraded in front of her son. My son, these are beautiful women. Pick one and give me a grandchild, because this witch will never give you a child, she said to Elo, who agreed to take on a second wife soon. One day, this was years later, he returned home with a woman who he called his joy giver. She was young, tall, and beautiful. Her name was Jacinth, and Mama Elo welcomed her with open arms. She clapped her hands in excitement and danced around the sitting room, saying that finally her hands would carry her own grandchildren. Ndidi stood back and watched as Mama Elo mocked her in front of them. She called her a graveyard, and Ndidi could not bear the embarrassment. She ran into her room, and Elo ran after her, stating that Ndidi had to pack her things to the garage because he needed the room for his joy giver. Ndidi could not believe what was happening. Her heart shattered, but she did everything within her power to hold herself. Elo took Jacinth by the hand as he paraded her around like a trophy and announced his plans to make her a second wife. Ndidi confronted him. She could not imagine that Elo was thinking of marrying another woman. She kicked against the idea, stating that Elo had no right to bring another woman into their matrimonial home. But Elo looked at her in the face and called her a joker. If you ever make this house uncomfortable with my joy giver here, you will regret the day that you were born. His mother stood in front of her and dared her to do her worst. If you don't know, Jacinth here is already pregnant with my grandchild, she said to Ndidi, whose tears flowed like a fountain. Everything was happening too fast, and Ndidi could not believe how the man who she gave everything could turn back and hurt her in the worst way possible. Days passed, and the humiliation even got worse. Elo threw a grand party in their home to welcome his new woman into the family. No one cared about Ndidi and how she felt seeing her husband in the arms of another woman. However, the straw that broke the camel's back was when Mama Elo said something that Ndidi could not condone. It was a calm evening, and Ndidi was alone in the garage when Jacinth approached her with a mocking laughter. You useless woman, is it by force to remain in a marriage that you are no longer wanted? How desperate can you be to sleep in a dusty garage with rats and cockroaches, all because you want to hold on to your title as Mrs.? You disgust me, Ndidi, and the earlier you realize that Elo is mine, the better for you, she said to Ndidi, who warned her to stay away, but Jacinth was not one to back down. She kept insulting Ndidi, who did nothing but ignore her. When Jacinth saw that her plans were not working, she let out a loud scream, claiming that Ndidi pushed her to the wall. She wants to kill my baby, she screamed aloud until Mama ran in to meet them. Jacinth lied to Mama that Ndidi called her a prostitute. How dare you call her a prostitute, you daughter of a loose woman? It's your useless mother who slept with a madman to give birth to you. That's why no child has agreed to come out of that your cursed womb, she said to Ndidi, who gave her a very hot slap across her face. The sound cracked through the compound like thunder. Mama staggered back, clutching her cheek, her mouth wide open in shock. You will never insult my parents again. Ndidi's voice shook, but her eyes blazed with fire. Elo stormed in, his face twisted with rage. You dare to slap my mother? He roared, raising his hand, as Ndidi stood tall and dared him to try it. I dare you to slap me and see what will happen to you next, she said to Elo, who laughed in her face. You? What can you do? You wretched cleaner that I rescued from poverty. How dare you threaten me? He said as Jacinth called her a spineless bulldog. Mama Elo laughed and mocked her, asking who she thinks she is to threaten her son. Do you know how influential my son is? Mama Elo asked Ndidi, who stood there and watched as she bragged about her son being a top executive at Temex, a company they never knew belonged to Ndidi. Ndidi watched them wallow in their foolishness. She watched as Elo promised to buy Jason the car that she had always wanted. For over 7 years, despite all she had done for Elo never got her a car. He gave her one excuse or the other on why he couldn't buy her a car at the time, and Ndidi, blinded by her love for him, believed his excuses. She even approved several raises for him, hoping that he finally buys her a car. But Elo never discussed his raise with her. He pretended not to have enough, and Ndidi made excuses for him in her heart. She stood there furious as she threatened to take everything from him. "I will make you suffer in a way that you will regret ever crossing my path," she said to Elo, who gave her a hot slap across her face, daring her to do her worst. For a moment, the whole world stood still. Then Ndidi calmly picked up her phone and dialed the number. "Hello," she said. "Terminate Elochukwu's appointment immediately. He no longer works for us." Elo and his mother burst into laughter. "Are you insane?" Elo shouted. "You, a wretched cleaner! Who do you think you are to fire me from my company?" Ndidi locked eyes with him. Her lips curled into the faintest smile. "It is not your company, Elochukwu. It is mine. The company you've been bragging about. The one you've been rising in. I own it. Every contract, every kobo you've enjoyed was signed off by me," she said to Elo, who called her a daydreamer. "You call yourself the owner of Temex. You, a wretched cleaner who could not even afford a sanitary pad." Jacinth laughed and called her a madwoman. "Ndidi, you are delusional. Who do you think you are, you foolish woman?" Ndidi did not flinch. She just stood there calm as she watched Elo's phone ring. He smirked, waving the phone in her face. "Watch and learn, you useless woman. My boss is calling. He probably wants to give me another contract. Listen well, and you will know your place." Elo picked up the call and put it on speaker. "Good evening, Mr. Elochukwu. This is to inform you that your employment with Temex has been terminated with immediate effect. Your access card has been disabled and all benefits revoked. Kindly vacate the premises of the company in a week, as the company will take full possession of the house that you live in." The line went dead as Elo froze. The color drained from his face as the phone slipped from his hand and crashed onto the floor. Mama Elo blinked rapidly. "Ha! No! No! It must be a mistake. Call them back, my son." Ndidi looked at them and smiled as she finally spoke, her voice sharp as a blade. "I told you all that I own Temex, but you laughed me in the face and dared me to do my worst. I approved your employment, Elo. I approved your raises. I even signed the promotion you boasted about to me. Every dime that passed through your hands was because of me, Elo, and now I have taken back what belongs to me." Elo stood there shocked as the room fell silent. His mother's mocking smile faded into confusion as Jacinth opened her mouth confused. She staggered backwards as she clutched her chest in complete shock. Elo tried to speak, but his lips trembled as he listened to Ndidi speak. "For 7 years, I let you trample upon me. I let your mother mock me and use me as a slave. Today I choose myself. Today I end your reign over me. That slap you gave me will be the last you ever raise against me. The next time you see me, it will be from the ground looking up, because I will be far above you." And with that, they walked out of the house, leaving them in their own shock. Elo could not believe how quickly things turned. He arrived at the office the next morning and realized that his table had been cleaned out. His access card did not work. His name had already been removed from the staff directory. His calls went unanswered. The same workers who once bowed before him now walked past without greeting. He tried everything possible to have a word with Ndidi, but all his efforts were in vain. She had vanished from his life like mist in the morning sun. The house they once lived in was repossessed by the company, and Elo, along with his mother and mistress, were forced to move into a smaller rented apartment in town. Life, which once seemed golden, turned to brass. Jacinth, who Elo once called his joy giver, became his nightmare. Her incessant demands drained him of every little money that he managed to save. She wanted clothes, jewelry, and luxury, She mocked him for losing his job and taunted him for losing Ndidi. What kind of a man are you? Even your so-called cleaner of a wife was better than you. She spat at him one evening as Elo stood there in regret. Elo lived in daily torment. He would return from his endless search for jobs, only to find Jacinth sprawled on the sofa, shouting at him to get her more things. Her pregnancy progressed, and for a moment, Mama Elo boasted again, saying that her enemies were about to be put to shame. But a day before she was due to deliver, Jacinth screamed in the night. Blood flowed uncontrollably. They rushed her to the hospital, but the doctors shook their heads in sorrow, telling them that the baby was gone. Mama Elo wailed and tore at her clothes, her pride crushed as her son made up his mind to seek the truth. It was in that moment that Elo realized that his own mother was the cause of his own misfortune. A prophet revealed to him that years ago, his mother poisoned another woman and stole her husband, which was his father. The woman died in pain, but before she passed, she swore that your lineage would never know joy through children. The white cat that Ndidi always saw was her spirit, returning again and again to ensure the covenant held. Elo staggered backwards as he could not believe his ears. For all these years, he believed Ndidi was the problem. Little did he know that his mother caused it all. The realization broke Elo as memories of every tear that Ndidi shed, every insult his mother hurled at her, and every slap that he had given to her returned to torment him. Elo remembered the day she walked out on him, the day that he lost the most valuable thing that he had in his life. Ndidi flourished, her companies expanded. She was celebrated in Owerri and beyond as one of the most successful young women in her generation. Mama Elo, however, never recovered from the shame. She lived out her days in regret, wishing that she lived a better life. Jacinth eventually left Elo for another man, abandoning him with debt and disgrace. And Elo, he walked the streets of town, broken, jobless and mocked, a living lesson, never to mock grace. The lesson to be learned from this story is that true strength lies in knowing your worth and never allowing anyone, not a husband, not a mother-in-law, not even society, to define it for you. Ndidi's pain was never her weakness, it was her refinement. When she finally chose herself, the marks fell and the truth was revealed. In life, wickedness may laugh for a moment, but justice always speaks in the end. Never mock a heart that serves with love, because the stone you cast at grace will one day return as fire. I hope you enjoyed the story.